Welcome back, everybody, for Next Level Hi-Fi's Meet the Genius with Michael Børresen. This is, I think, the third in our series, and we've got a focused question. The question we have is something that a lot of people have very strong feelings on, and something that is near and dear to your heart, which is, does a speaker that measures flat sound good?
I think if you could make perfect speaker drivers that did not make any noise by themselves, yeah, maybe it would sound good. But I think there's a very good reason why the BBC monitor, measures the way it does. It has a significant dip around 2.5, 3 kilohertz. That curve has been sort of elevated to something that they build into DSPs, and what do you have it? I think the reason it sounds good is because those two drivers do not play the same frequency the same way. So if you sum it up to being perfectly flat and there is a disjoint in the way it plays, our ears and our brains sort of interprets that as something sticking out, being unnatural. So unless you have perfect speaker drivers, I don't know many, if I know any, then speakers should definitely not be flat. They should have a suck out around the crossover section. They should. And I think it's mandatory. And also because you have a phase shift, and that means that you actually have to put, because some of it phases out each other, that means that you actually have to put excess energy into that area in order to create something that our microphone sees as flat. So I think that in order to have the correct energy distribution in the frequency bands, I think there needs to be a suck-out around the crossover section between the speaker tweeter section and the mid-range section.
So you would need to have perfect drivers, and they'd have to be perfectly matched in order for a flat speaker to sound good?
I think if you had something, the problem is you get the phase shift. So when you do a crossover, you have a phase shift. The bass driver's rolling off with one phase shift and a tweeter rolling off with another phase shift. And that means that they don't match each other. So in order to achieve a flat frequency response there, you have to put more energy, because when they're off phase, they cancel each other a little bit. So if they cancel each other 30%, and you still say, okay, I want to have a flat frequency response in that area, you actually put 30% more energy in that frequency region than what it should if it was just handled by one driver.
Would the signal that ends up coming out that looks flat, would it sound smeared?
It would just sound peaky in your face, in your ears, and you would lose that sense of realism.
Okay, interesting. I mean, this kind of matches with our experience as speaker sellers. We've had a number of speakers in the showroom over the years that have measured more flatly than Børresen's, and it's very hard to sell them when people compare them to the Børresen's when they listen to both. People seem to prefer a speaker that's not perfectly flat.
Yeah, but perfectly flat is something like it's a philosophy exercise rather than reality exercise, and it is based by the fact that when you measure something, you measure the absolute SPL, but at the same time, I feel if I have a driver with a paper membrane and I listen to it, I think it lacks focus, it lacks precision, it lacks energy, it lacks a lot, because a part of that driver is in opposite phase because the membrane is soft. So in order to have something flat there, you also have to have excess energy put into an area, and you have some cancellation going on, and something in that soft membrane, something is going on in that soft membrane, and that smears things. So if you really want to pin this, I think it will sound less detailed, less focused, and it will sound peaky, also sharp, and in your face. And I think over time we discovered sort of like a mechanism. It is like if I pull the crossover section 3 dBs down, the speaker sounds natural. So I think in order to have something sounding flat, it definitely cannot measure flat at the same time. If it measures flat, it will sound peaky. Yamaha NS10 that's used in many studios is one of those speakers. It's almost completely flat over the crossover section, but it sounds very much in your face. So those are things that you can have a philosophy and you can try to make it flat, but then we start tweaking and listening and tweaking again and listening, and then we end up in a situation where we make control measurements afterwards. We see, okay, we needed to take 3 dB of energy out in that region. I mean, for as an exercise, it's you know our place, you know our room, you know how we do things. But sometimes we try to stick out, so we just don't do the same as we did before. I made a new driver membrane. Maybe that has less noise. Maybe we can make it flatter. And then we start by making it almost ruler flat. Because our drivers are good, we can easily make that. But we end out in something that looks with a sort of like a dip over the crossover region, because we cannot stand the other thing. And that's also what you experience when you take speakers in that maybe are a bit more flat. They sound peaky, squeaky in your face most often.
Do you think part of the challenge of designing a speaker that measures flat, that sounds good, is that the measurements aren't catching the entirety of the sound that your ears are receiving?
Yeah, I think if you look at a measurement system, it always looks at an average. It looks in a window, so to speak. You have a Hanning window, which is sort of like a time delta, and it catches the energy there and it sums it up. So you're not listening the way we listen. We listen in a transient, but we have that capability of listening in all frequencies at the same time. So the correlation between sound pressure level and frequency content and timing is what we listen at, because we listen for transients in an instant. We just don't listen bass and then mid-range and then tweeter, treble as separate events. We listen everything at the same time. And the one thing that we are good at in our brains is create an image from what we listen to. We can almost see physically the singer in front of us. We can almost, and those are the results of receiving a lot of information in different frequency aspects at the same time. And if those are mismatching levels, and if they're mismatched, I'd rather have something missing than something sticking out, because our brain can recreate what's missing. I'd like when I do a monitor speaker, I would better have it a little lean in the bottom and then handle the overtones really, really well, than make a reflex that boasts the lower frequencies and not have them doing the overtones to the deep bass very well. That just sounds blobby and slow. But if you tighten it up and make sure it does the overtones really, really well, then you're not missing the deep bass, because our brains just recreate it, because we know it must be there and our brains hear it anyway.
Yeah, I've heard you say this before, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, if you get the bass wrong, even though it's nice and deep, it's not going to sound musical, it's not going to sound satisfying, it's going to stick out.
It's the same with subwoofers. I mean, if you try to integrate a subwoofer with a DSP into a stereo pair of speakers, it's impossible, because it cannot catch up with the 20 or 15 or how many milliseconds delay you have through a DSP to control the sub. It's a lost cause. And the same thing goes with speakers, even two-way speakers or 2.5-way speakers, as we do. You must be able to create a situation where it times the transients from the deepest bass to the tweeter. And speakers are much more about that than it is about accuracy and frequency response.
Yeah.
But trying to be accurate in the frequency responses for some a discipline. They need to do that and have a firm belief in that. But there are so many things that are so much more important. the timing aspects are so much more important. The eigennoise that speaker drivers create. For me, it's mandatory to have stiff membranes, because the minute you have soft membranes, you have a shitload of breakups going on. And for me, when you have that and try to make a speaker, you can make it as good as you want, but it's like there's a blanket in front of the speaker. There's so many micro details that disappears in this in phase, out of phase things that goes on in the membrane that decouples itself.
Even though on average, with over time, it seems to be flat.
It can measure fully flat, but flat says nothing about the quality of what comes out. It just says something about the SPL level, and that's where we are actually the least sensitive. We are much more sensitive to the other aspects of it. We know immediately if a twig snaps nearby that transient. We know because that's danger. Our hearing hears the danger. And if there's a thunder far away, we can sleep through it because it's far away. We know that because of the frequency content, because of how the harmonics are structured. So we know. And that's also why when we have a very good stereo setup, we can recreate the room it's in. We can feel the boundaries of the room. We can almost have an aura of air around each instrument and the singer and all these things. It's because we are capable of receiving information on many frequency bands at the same time. We listen in transients, we measure signs, and that is two different things. A measurement can tell you something about the tonal balance of a speaker. If it's tilted, if it's like that, if it's peaky, it will almost certainly be a bright speaker. So those are things that you can read out from a frequency plot, but you can never judge any quality of performance out from a frequency spot and use that as a quality assessment. Is saying, okay, a car with 1,500 horses must be better than one with 300 horses. But that does not take into account how it corners, how agile it is, how nimble it is, how good it is to drive. You know that.
That's a great metaphor.
When we were driving the BMWs, everybody said the M2. The M2 was definitely the best, even better than the M4. And actually, the Z4 was the second best, even if it had far less power than the other cars. Because it was so nimble, it was so agile, it was such a pleasant car to drive. So those are the things also count with speakers. There are so many other parameters and frequency response that really, really matters.
I think that's a really useful metaphor. That makes a lot of sense. And I do remember the M2 was, it was very impressive with its power and with its handling. But that Z4, it was just a joy. It was easy. It was fun.
Yeah. And I think in our hands, we were not capable of extracting everything out of the M2. The Z4 would probably be faster on a lap if we were starting to time it, because it was an easier drive. And it didn't lack power. It was still pretty quick.
Yeah, it was. Maybe your next car, huh?
No. No, I don't think so. No, I'm getting too old for that kind of car. I'd rather have something different.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we told you this would be a short episode, and I think you've answered the question wonderfully. I know it's getting later over there. It's late afternoon, about 4:30 now, right?
Yeah, something like that. It's
4:30.
Okay. It's okay. I have today not many plans, but tomorrow I have guests coming over. So.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, here we're just starting our day. I'm drinking my morning coffee as you're having a glass of wine.
For the evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend there. We will make food in a short while, so it'll be a nice evening.
Oh, nice.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool. I had a quick bonus question from a good customer of ours who we just delivered the T3 SSEs to. He upgraded from O3s. And of course, he's very interested in the titanium baskets. And he was wondering why Børresen doesn't use tungsten baskets, or maybe you've tested them before and decided not to.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to get tungsten. as a basket, because how will you manufacture it? It's virtually impossible to machine, and you have to spark erode. And when you go that route with spark erosion, I mean, running is running. So I think there are other ways to manufacture. But if you look at our darks, we have certain elements in the darks that sounds really good. We have stainless steel darks, which are pretty good. We have titanium darks, which are pretty good. We have zirconium darks, which are pretty good, and that's why it's titanium and zirconium. I think actually stainless steel as a material for baskets, as a replacement, like in the X and in the C, would be a better alternative, because it just sounds better. We omitted aluminium in our darks for the same reason, that stainless steel IC316 just simply sounds better. But we have also seen, if we take the stainless steel and take it to the coatings and prepare some zirconium or hafnium coatings on it, we can get even better sound from stainless steel baskets. So we have for the future tools. I think the basket we now have is a very good basket, but maybe that's not even the end of the story. We are just learning what baskets can do for us.
Very, very exciting. Hear that, everyone? Stay tuned for more developments.
Yeah, no baskets are like this. You know, they are in tension and then they are in compression. So the tone of that basket is overlaid into your speaker. Something, of course, you cannot measure, but something you can hear. And that's again into the story of everything matters in a speaker. You can hear everything. Once you know where the origin is, it's quite easy to decipher it. Materials have a tone, and these tones are present whether you like it or not in the speaker driver. So baskets matter a lot, and titanium, the 3D shaped basket we have in the T series, is absolutely fantastic. Titanium is very stiff, and it has this crispy tone to it, something we already knew many years ago. Lars found out many years ago, where he used titanium uprights in his racks, and in our racks are also titanium uprights.
Yeah,
it is a good material in audio. It is really good material. And of course, everything is overlaid by the tone. Speakers are the tone of the cabinet. Stiffness of the cabinet matters. All these things add to a tone. And maybe they even matter more than how flat the speaker is. I'm very humble about this, because it is for some people a very delicate subject, but I think it's because the nuances in flatness needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Because it's a very deliberate thing we do with the sog out between the tweeter and the mid range, and it's deliberate in from all the years of experience we had. But as we have drivers that extend extremely, I mean, the carbon fiber driver can be used almost as a full range driver. It's not a problem to create something that's fully flat in that area. It's just a matter of the coils we use for the crossover, what value do they have? Are they 0.2 millihenry or are they 0.68 millihenry? That creates different slopes on the driver. And if we take the bigger one, it creates more slope. And because it has more slope, then you will get the suck out. You can pull the corner of the cutoff frequency back and forth. And so it's really it's really not an art. It's an exact science, but it's also a deliberate choice.
Yeah, the art comes from the choosing of what sounds good, huh?
Exactly, the selection of components and the values, of course, and also we do a plate where it's very easy for us to solder in and solder out components. So when we put speakers in, we start the speaker off and let it run for a day or two just to get it initially burned in. And then when we have the speaker, a set of monitors maybe on a stand, then wires come out, the reflex port out the bottom or where the terminals are, and onto a table where we have a plate where we have the crossover. So we can listen, change, listen, change, listen, change. And then we start out always with the components. When we take it into our measurement lab, we know that this is fairly flat. And then we start changing. It can be change value of the resistor in the crossover. It can be the value of the capacitor forming the lower slope on the tweeter. It can be a value of the coils. And then we listen, and we listen carefully to these things about voices should sound natural. You should not have any sibilance, even on a female voice. All these things, and all of a sudden we have a speaker that really evaporates itself in the listening room, not being there. We just have this fantastic sound stage with almost an aura around the instruments and the voices and the singer and all these things. And when that is there, that's when we can say, okay, now we know how the speaker with that driver, those driver measurements is supposed to measure. And then we go from there. And then we make a final crossover, put it in the box. And then typically a speaker can go around. I take one home, Morten takes one home, Frank takes one home, and then we listen to it, and then we meet again and talk again. So even if I decide together with Lars, this is how it's going to be, it's from many inputs. It's from many inputs.
Yeah. And the decisions are made with the ears, not with the graph.
You can never. Yeah, if you do that, then I think your path is sealed. Okay, because then I mean, then if that was the case, then every speaker manufacturer in existence would sound pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, yeah. What if your ears tell you something sounds bad, but the graph tells you it's perfect? I mean, if you go with the graph, you're lost.
I think that those that go with the graph and say, I can make a perfect speaker, look how flat it is, have misunderstood the task, so to speak. Our job as a hi-fi manufacturer is not to create a monster. It is to be true to what the artist intended. So there's always this, of course, it's a personal judgment. Does this sound like Cohen or does it not sound like Cohen? How does a human voice sound? How does a bass, double bass sound? How does a violin sound? All these things we know because we've been in a room with them. We know. Yeah. So if you trust your ears, trust your instincts around that, you will pretty sure find out that speakers are not supposed to be flat. And the old BBC monitor, the Rogers LS3A, is a good example. It became famous for sounding natural.
Yeah, even though it's not flat.
It's absolutely not flat. It's maybe 60 dB sucked out. It's more sucked out than I like. But then again, I think I have better drivers, so maybe they are not so different, the tweeter and the mid-range, as they were in the days where they made the Rogers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe we can get a little closer than that. But it just shows that something that has a good and long-lasting relationship, good and long-lasting appreciation in the world is not necessarily ideal from a flatness point of view. And I think that flatness came into this also because of the possibility to DSP every frequency. Yeah. So now you can make a speaker fully flat with the DSP and fur filters and all that shit, and then you lost everything in the sense that this is correct, it has to be correct, and then you find out that after a day or two you're pretty annoyed with your system.
Yeah,
you invite listening fatigue into your room.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though on paper it looks good.
Exactly.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's Michael's answer to the question, does a speaker that measures flat sound good? Thank you very much again, Michael. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
I'll work on my morning.
Yeah, take care.
We'll see you
Enjoy.
next time.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.